Your Voice, Shropshire Disability Network Newsletter, Issue Number 9, March 2011. This is Part 4 of the general section of the newsletter. The Campaign for a Fair Society. If you're worried about coalition government cuts to services for disabled people, we invite you to join the Campaign for a Fair Society. Launched today on February the 8th with the publication of a full-page advert in the Times, we hope that in the coming days and weeks many thousands of you will join the campaign. In the government's comprehensive spending review announced on October the 20th last year, Chancellor George Osborne insisted that those with the broadest shoulders should bear the greatest burden. In fact, the government is implementing cuts that will impact on some of the most vulnerable people in society, including people with learning disabilities and disabled children. The cuts include reductions in local authority budgets of up to 25%, which lead to similar reductions in funding to all local authority-funded care and support services. The closure of the Independent Living Fund and the loss of funding which will affect 21,000 of the most severely disabled people in the country and may prevent many from continuing to live independently in the community. Changes to support for mortgage interest benefit effectively rule out shared home ownership for disabled people. A threat to the mobility component of disability living allowance for people in residential care, which helps meet some of the costs of things such as electric wheelchairs, mobility aids and taxis where there is no accessible public transport. Without it, many people could be isolated at home. The campaign argues that cuts to benefits and services are counterproductive and unfair. Counterproductive because there is evidence that, when people have the support to lead fulfilling lives, their needs become less severe and the cost of supporting them actually reduces over time. Unfair because they will prevent disabled people enjoying many of the things most of us take for granted: our own home, loving relationships, work and income. The campaign is not just about protest, but also about making a positive contribution. It proposes 7 principles to guide decisions about policy and funding and seeks to engage policymakers in dialogue. To join the Campaign for a Fair Society and find out more about the principles it promotes, visit www.campaignforaFairSociety.com. Please help spread the word by circulating this email to your friends, family and colleagues. US payday loan firms plan rapid expansion in cash-strapped Britain. Credit at 30% a month can take minutes to secure. One group sees opportunity for 800 new branches in the UK. This article has been written by Peter Walker from The Guardian on the 11th of February. www.guardian.co.uk//FMP/US-payday-loan-firms-INTC-MP=SRCH. US corporations offering loans to poorer customers that often charge more than 30% in interest a month are planning a massive expansion in the UK, prompting warnings that thousands of families could become trapped in a cycle of debt, a problem already seen in America. One large payday loan group told investors it aims to almost quadruple its UK presence, opening some 800 stores and expanding into deprived rural communities to target families affected by redundancy or loss of income. Payday lending, in which relatively small sums are offered for the short term at a cost regularly exceeding 30% a month, is hugely controversial in the US. A number of states have passed laws capping maximum interest rates or limiting the number of loans per customer. The UK industry is growing fast. One web lender, Wonga.com, began sponsoring a Premier League football team, Blackpool, less than 3 years after starting business, but remains relatively small. A US loans giant, Dollar Financial, which already operates 370 money shops in the UK, has just bought Payday UK, the biggest British internet payday operator. Last month, its chief executive, Geoffrey Rice, told investors that recession hit Britain, where the sector is relatively unregulated compared with the US, was a prime market. He said, "I think we may be 25% of the way towards a full country build-out in the UK. That includes having large stores in highly dense areas and, in an area we haven't really moved to yet, smaller stores in more rural areas." If you extrapolate from our current 350 stores, I think there is a potential universe for us of 1,200 locations. The news has alarmed debt advice groups in the UK and US. While acknowledging payday loan firms fill a gap vacated by banks, which in recent years have largely denied overdrafts to customers with mixed credit ratings, they argue that the way the industry operates is flawed. Payday loans are marketed as a source of instant funds to meet a one-off financial emergency via a shop or a website. Customers can borrow around £75 to £750, which is deposited in their bank account in as little as 15 minutes. It can be repaid in around 2 to 4 weeks. While the interest is extremely high, this is seen as manageable if the debt is paid off as scheduled. However, debt advice groups warn that many borrowers repeatedly roll over the loan, which grows exponentially as interest and extra administration fees mount up. Someone who has suffered is Paul Stevens, 23, from Cornwall, who is married with a 14-month-old child and another on the way. He said, "We started off with one loan for £75 over 28 days. We both work in the care industry, so don't earn enough money, and that month we had a couple of extra bills. The loan was for Basics, a big food shop. We found ourselves rolling the loan over again and again, still being short of money every month, and then taking out other loans to cope. We owe maybe £3,000. Of that, £1,200 is a £600 loan, which is doubled in 47 days of being late. It's so easy to take these loans out. It takes maybe 5 minutes on the internet. You almost don't think about them properly. When you pay a loan back, your trust rating goes up, meaning you can borrow even more." Research in the US indicates this cycle of debt is common, with the average payday loan customer taking out almost 10 loans a year. Some US campaigners argue that lenders encourage such repeated borrowings to boost profits. Uriah King from the North Carolina-based Center for Responsible Lending said, "Payday lenders were utterly dependent on snaring customers in long-term debt. If you go to the website of every payday loans company, they stress that this is short-term lending to meet a one-off need. But in private, these companies are telling their investors different things. It's a system designed to trap borrowers." The Consumer Federation of America takes a similar view, noting that after Washington state imposed a maximum of 8 payday loans per year, the industry lobbied for its repeal of the law, saying that it made their business unsustainable. The sector insists that Office of Fair Trading rules on irresponsible lending prevent such excesses. British payday loan customers tend to be better off than in the US, they add. However, evidence presented as part of an OFT report last year claimed 30% of payday loans in Britain are not paid off on time. British debt groups are also concerned. Damon Gibbons from the Centre of Responsible Credit said, "It's very difficult to gauge the situation in the UK because we don't have access to the same amount of data that's available in the US. UK firms don't seem to be willing to provide any of this, which would seem to indicate that they have something to hide. There is a risk that this is the same business model operating and that some people are becoming trapped in a cycle of rollover loans." The Consumer Finance Association, the trade body for many payday loan companies, says that it's working on a code of practice which could cover areas such as a cap on loans per customer and affordability checks. John Lamedy, its chief executive, said, "The UK models are not the same as the US, nor could they be because of the very high standards of UK regulation. Every business wants repeat customers. There's nothing wrong with repeat custom so long as the lending is responsible, which is what the new regulations ensure. If you lend money to those who cannot repay, you go out of business." WizKids ask families to support them in securing reforms of wheelchair services. This has been reprinted from the Parent and Carer Council Shropshire, www.paccshropshire.org.uk. WizKids is a charity that's all about giving disabled children the chance to lead a more independent life. Its aim is to ensure that every disabled child has an opportunity to be something special, a kid. There are an estimated 70,000 disabled children and young people in the UK waiting for a wheelchair that fits their young lives. That's where WizKids comes in. It provides disabled children with the essential wheelchairs and other mobility equipment they need to lead fun and active childhoods. And now they're asking for families to support them in doing this by signing up to their Fast Forward petition. For details on how you can support them, see below. WizKids is calling on the government to fast forward reform of NHS wheelchair provision for disabled children and young people. This will ensure that all disabled children in the UK can access the right mobility equipment and ongoing support that they need without undue delay. An estimated 70,000 children are waiting to receive the mobility equipment that's right for them. This wait often takes months, even years. In the meantime, children are missing out on their childhood as they're unable to fully participate in family and school life and keep up with their friends. The government has made a commitment to reform NHS wheelchair services on many occasions. Following the recent general election, we would like to urge the new government to fast forward improvements to NHS wheelchair provision for disabled children. This government has also pledged that if we can raise 100,000 signatures on one petition, this would bring forward a debate in Parliament about the need for wheelchair reform. So please sign this petition. It will take 2 minutes, but it could change the lives of disabled children all over the UK. You will find the petition at either of the websites, www.wiz-kids.org.uk/fast forward/fast forward-petition. Or you can find it at tinyurl.com/5WZNUVT.